Adding texture to your footage can take your videos to the next level. In this video, you're going to learn how to create this paper grunge texture effect in Premiere Pro with the help of Photoshop. What's up guys, my name is Josh, I'm a 3D visual effects artist and my goal is to teach you everything that I know. The more people we reach, the better, so hit subscribe and leave a like if you got something from this video. Quick note before we get started, the textures I'm using in this video are from my Editor's Essentials pack. I'll leave that link below if you want to follow along or if you want to take your content to the next level in half the time. I seriously use this pack when I'm editing all my videos and I couldn't recommend it enough. But without further ado, let's get into it. I have two clips here from the music video Not Like Us by Kendrick Lamar. However, the frame that I want to turn into paper, I'm just going to select M, which leaves a marker so that we can easily come back to these spots later. So I'm going to go through, I'm going let's say every 10 frames, and I'm just pressing M at every 10 frames because I want this animation effect. And then I'm going to go and press M on the first frame of the next scene. Now that you've picked out all your frames, holding shift, it will snap onto those markers. So I'm going to drag it onto my first marker here, and then I'm going to go to this camera icon underneath the viewport. You save it anywhere you want. I'm going to save mine as a PNG so we have a lot of information around so we can play around with the colors and make it look more like paper later. And then also you can name it whatever you want. I'm just going to name it Not Like Us Screen Grab 1, and then I'm just going to go through them all and do the exact same. I'm going to make this Screen Grab 2. I'm just going to skip through here. And then we got our Screen Grab 6. So now that we have all my screen grabs, I'm going to bring the first one into Photoshop. Now we're in Photoshop, we're going to jump straight into it. I'm going to duplicate my clip. So I'm just going to hold Alt, drag down. I'm going to select the top clip and then press remove background. Well, we're going to right click on the little black and white icon next to it. And this is just our matte or our mask. I'm going to right click and press select and mask. This will bring up this window, which allows us to clean up our mask a little bit. So now I'm just going to go and adjust the edge shift to -50 and the radius to about 10 pixels. The reason why I've done this is because I found that it gives this nice weathered effect around the edges. So I'm just going to press OK. Now I'm just going to bring in those paper textures. Like I said at the start of the video, if you want access to these paper textures, I'll have it linked down below. I have these rips here. I'm just going to bring this below my subject layer. Select and hold on the eraser tool. I'm going to go to the magic eraser and I want to erase all the black on our paper here. I'm just going to go through now and delete all the rest, what I don't want to use, by selecting, delete. I'm going to copy and paste this selection so that we have two separate rips. And then now for this one, I'm just going to go and erase just the bits and pieces that I don't want. So we can see here, I'm going to fix up this and fix all these little bits and pieces. There we go. So now we got that. I'm going to rotate it because I like the inside texture more than the outside texture. Because when we removed it from the black, it kind of has a little bit more of a rip texture than it does on the outside. Now my paper texture is pretty much ready. So I'm going to go up to edit, and I'm going to go to Puppet Warp. I put 3 points, and now I'm just going to slowly kind of fits, and you really adjust it to your subject because we're just going to keep going around, and you can add as many points as you want and it works pretty well. But you can see sometimes you can stretch the texture a little too much and it can be obvious. So we want to kind of avoid that. But I'm going to keep going through here, and we can see here to curve this. I'm going to come up here and come around his hat. I didn't worry too much about making it all the way around the mesh because we have another rip here that we can use on the other side. So it just adds more variation of different types of rips. Now selecting my second rip, I'm not going to worry about cleaning this one up too much because it seems to be fine. Now add it kind of where I want it to be. Now if we go back up the Puppet Warp tool, we can see I'm just adding as many points as I need to really fit it to my edges. So I'm just gonna, sweet. So now that I've gone all the way around, I'm just going to erase all the rest that I don't need. And there we go. We can see that we're actually missing a few bits and it kind of looks kind of generic at the moment. So we want to add a little bit more texture. So I'm going to drag in another texture. And this one's a little bit more of a messy texture. So I'm just going to do the same here. I'm going to erase all the black. And I'm going to just clean it up here as much as I can. So I have this little trunk here. I'm not looking for anything long. I'm just looking to fill in the gaps that I missed. So we can see here, I'm just going to rotate this, clean up a lot of these specs. I don't want to get rid of too much of that detail because I want to actually rotate this so we can get this nice kind of ripped, weathered paper effect in this spot. So I'm just going to make this big enough to fit the hand. And then I'm going to drag it underneath. Going to go Puppet Warp. I'm just going to adjust it as much as I can to fill in some of these gaps. Yeah. Sweet. And instead of deleting this end part, I'm actually going to copy and paste it. And then I'm going to use it on his shirt down here. And I'm actually going to go around and copy and paste so that we dirty up the texture a little bit more by adding more of these around. So I just went through and did all that. As you can see, I copy and pasted it around, kind of adding it in certain areas. And this is what I got. But now that I have my subject outlined in the paper rips, I'm going to select my subject and my paper rips. And I'm actually going to create a smart object. This allows us to combine this all into one layer, but we can still edit it for later. So by double clicking on this little icon here, this will open up another Photoshop file with our subject and our paper rips. So now we're going to add some texture around the edges just to give it a little bit more of a worn feel. The way we're going to do that is we're going to find a brush that has a lot of texture to it. All these brushes that I use in this video are free, so I'll have them linked below so you can download and use them as well. I'm going to use this one that Adobe provides, and it's called Kyle's Eraser Natural Edge. And as you're going to see here, this brush allows us to add a little bit more imperfections around the edges. So we're just going to go around. We can see here, I'm not worrying too much about being perfect with it because we want it to be more grungy than perfect. Don't worry about erasing too much where you can see the background. We're actually going to fill that in. So we can see here, I have a few spots that are missing. They're showing the background. So the way that I just fixed that is I'm going to hide my top mask. And with my paper rips selected, I'm actually going to go up to my lasso tool and I'm going to go around my paper rips. Now I'm just going to generate fill the inside of this. It gives us this texture, which isn't great, and you're not going to see much of it, so it doesn't matter too much. I'm just going to select the both of these now, and I'm just going to press Control E. This just combines them into one. I'm going to enable my subject again, and as we can see, it filled in all those gaps, which is sweet. And once that's done, we want to press Save, and then we'll come back into our original Photoshop file. Now that we're here, I'm going to bring in another texture, and this is going to be our paper texture overlay. I'm going to scale this to fit our subject. I'm going to hold Alt and click on our paper texture over our subject, and then we're going to change this to screen. Now I'm going to bring in another paper texture, and this one's a different one. I'm going to click Alt and select that texture over our other paper texture, but this time we're going to change this to pin light, and then we're going to bring the opacity down to 30%. This gives us a nice uneven paper texture, grungy look on our subject. And you could be done there, but I actually want to take it one step further, adding a little bit more texture and more grunge to it. With some brushes that I downloaded for free, which are linked below, I'm going to grab some of these dust particles. I'm just going to place them over my subject. Don't forget to press Alt on it so that it creates a clipping mask. I'm going to spin this around by clicking R and rotating it so that I can get different angles. I'm going to look into these scorched and burnt textures. These are pretty cool. I'm going to change it to black. Just add some variety. And then drag this under my paper textures. And we can see now it looks 10 times better. Kind of adds that imperfection, the imperfect look to it. Keep this underneath. Yeah. And you can go wild with this as much as you want, but I'm happy with that. So I'm just going to hide my underlayer, go up to File, Export, and we're going to export it as a PNG. Now you want to go through and do all the frames exactly the same way. And once you have it done, you want to bring them into Premiere. So I'm just going to go through and line them all up in my scene. Now, as you can already see, we have this really cool grunge paper effect that looks already pretty dope. So once I've done that, for this last frame, this frame is going to be a little bit different, but similar at the same time. I'm going to bring that frame into Photoshop again. Because this frame is going to be more so a transition, I'm going to actually create 3 different versions of this one frame. So with one version, we want to go through and I'm going to cut this one like this. And then I'm going to cut my other one like this. So it kind of looks like we're unfolding the paper, or it's like we've taken multiple frames and add different types of rips just to look like it comes into frame, like folding into frame. So I'm going to go through and add my papers again. We just want to keep going all the way around. So I'm just going to do exactly the same thing as I did before. Now we're going to go through, clean it all up, add the roughness. I'm going to add in my textures, turn that on screen. So now after you've done that, added your textures, added all your papers, and you have all the paper rips you need, I'm going to actually send out my footage so that I can make space for my transition to happen. And then I'm going to place in my different frames, my different types of rips, kind of like this, so that when I press play, it folds out. I also ended up adding a paper effect underneath it to separate the transition from the first clip to the second clip. And then I'm going to leave a little bit of overhang on this last frame. So this is what it's looking like, and you can stop there, but I like to take it one step further and add a little bit more texture on top. So I go in and I add some grain, I add some dirt textures, and I add a letterbox, all from my Editor's Essentials pack. Added in a little bit of like a shake hit, just to add some flow to it. And this is what I got. Now you know how to create this effect in Premiere Pro and Photoshop. Hope you guys learned something, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.